video, I'm sharing how I used the law of assumption to manifest my husband in 4 months after spending about a decade as a strong, independent, powerful, making money single woman. So, if that's something that you're interested in, make sure to stick around until the end, especially if you're single. If you're single, you definitely need to stick around to the end on this video. Welcome to my channel. My name is Amanda Abaya, and on this channel, we talk to high achievers and high performers to help them get what it is that they desire in life without all the extra stress, chaos, and drama that most people are accustomed to. So if you are ready to achieve your goals, whether it's finding the love of your life, manifesting more money, or maybe you have some health goals and you want to do it in the easiest way possible, make sure to subscribe to this channel so you don't miss a single video that we have coming out. In addition to that, if you want to take what we're going to be talking about in this video a bit deeper, I've put together a free PDF. It's my 4-step manifestation guide where I walk through the step-by-step process I use to manifest my husband in 4 months, manifest a 6-figure business that mostly runs on autopilot, moving to another country, frequent travel, and now I'm using it for some health goals. So you can download that for free below. Okay, so let's get into how I manifested my husband in 4 months using the law of assumption. First, let's do a quick little refresher on what the law of assumption is. So this is something that was popularized by a man named Neville Goddard. And the idea is pretty simple. It's basically whatever you assume to be true is what is going to happen in your reality, because your external world is just a reflection of what is going on internally. It's all about your internal state and beliefs, and then that's what's going to get reflected back to you in the outside world. So if you assume, like I did, because that's what I was conditioned into, that men are dangerous, that they're useless, that you always need to be in control, then you're going to attract men or situations where that is going to be the case. Whereas if you assume that there's good provider men out here that will cherish you, who will protect you and provide for you in a multitude of different ways, and that you are worthy of that and that you can get that easily, then that's what you're going to get. And that's exactly what happened to me. So let me backtrack a little bit to explain where I was in my life when I decided that I was ready to manifest my husband. So as I mentioned earlier in the video, I'd been single-ish for like over 10 years maybe, and I say single-ish because I had this internal belief that men could not be trusted. So what would happen, I would end up in relationships where men did not want me and they could not be trusted. So that's the cycle and the pattern that I was in for about 10 years. I would actually be attracted to unavailable men, usually emotionally unavailable in some way, or they would have to end up moving across the country or things like that. But a lot of it was because I wasn't actually available, because I believed that men were useless and dangerous, because that is what I had been taught growing up. So leading up to this moment, I had a rapidly growing business as a sales trainer. I was starting to make $100,000 a month, so not a year, a month in that business. But I was overworked. I was very stressed out. I was very tired. And that in combination with some family health emergencies that happened at the exact same time, triggered a lot of trauma. It triggered a lot of ancestral trauma that I had never dealt with, and it triggered a lot of childhood trauma that I had never dealt with. So I basically went from making all this money and being super successful and looking like I had it all together on the outside to basically being on my knees, losing it all, wondering why I was so miserable and couldn't get anything done. And in that time period, I ended up working with an expert in neuroscience who I found because I was going to interview her for my other podcast at the time called Make Money Your Honey. That podcast is still around. You can go find it if you want to see interviews with business leaders. But I was connected somehow on Facebook in a DM. I don't even know how we were connected, but I somehow ended up chatting with her. I was going to interview her for the podcast. I found out what she did, which was help people figure out what's going on with their brains so they could be holistically made millionaires, as she calls it. And after chatting with her, I basically said, I think I need to hire you. There is something wrong with my brain. And the reason I came to that conclusion is because I couldn't really work like I used to. I was in a state of depression, anxiety. It was a very difficult moment. I had tried traditional therapy, it wasn't working for me. So I said, well, I'm going to go work with an expert in how the brain works because I'm pretty sure my brain is broken. In that process, we ended up uncovering everything that was standing in the way of me going or receiving what it is that I desired. I had initially hired her for money. I wanted to make more money in my business and I wanted it to be easier. Now, making money in my business is a lot easier right now, but that's a video for another time. We're going to stick to the husband for now. And what I ended up uncovering during that process, working with this mentor and continuing to do a lot of healing work afterward, was that I have been chasing money as a means to avoid being in intimate relationships. Because again, I had been taught men are not safe, you cannot rely on them, and they are useless. This was taught to me by my mother, my grandmother, and I also learned that I come from a long line of very controlling women. So, of course, when it came to relationships, I was not having very much luck because that was the blueprint that was given to me, whether actually telling me that or just by example. So, of course, I was having an issue in relationships, and then that was spilling over into every other area of my life. So I realized in working with this mentor, do I want more money? Yeah, sure, I wanted more money. But I also realized that I had been using business and money as an excuse to avoid intimate relationships. I was using it as an excuse to go after my true desires. So, for example, I'd had a dream for many years of wanting to live in other countries and travel full time. I was no closer to doing that, again, using my business as an excuse. This is something that we see with my coaching, what some of our coaching clients a lot, where, for example, they've had some level of success and now they're trying really hard to get to the next level and it's not working. And no matter what they do, it's not working. And when I start asking questions like, okay, take money off the table, what is it that you actually want? That's when the real stuff starts coming out. That's when it's stuff like, okay, I'm ready for my husband, which was the case for me and also the case for someone I was coaching a couple weeks ago. That's when I hear stuff like, man, I really want to get healthy again. That's when I hear stuff like, I want to move to another country. That's when I hear stuff like, I want to start something that's more mission based. I want to take up art again. That's when those things start coming up to the surface. So, a lot of times, what entrepreneurs will do is that we will use our businesses as an excuse to not deal with other things that we desire in our life because whatever it is that we desire for some reason feels very scary to us. That's exactly what I was doing. Manifesting my husband and getting into an intimate relationship seemed terrifying. So, what was I doing? I was taking it out on my business. I was overcomplicating it. I was causing a bunch of issues in that area. In addition to that, I was also trying to prove my worth to my parents, which you would think as a 30-something-year-old person, like, why are you still doing that? We still do it, right? Because we still have a lot of the stories and a lot of the imprints. And honestly, our subconscious is running the show, even in our adult life, until we become aware of what's going on in the subconscious. For me, I was not remotely aware of what was going on in my subconscious. So, long story short, that's just like the tip of the iceberg of the stuff that I started healing and working through with this expert in neuroscience. But I realized more money is cool, but what I really want is I want love. I want my husband. I want marriage. I'm ready for it. And that's when I started applying a lot of the principles in the law of assumption. So the first thing I did, right, and again, this was after clearing a lot of the trauma, working through a lot of the things that were holding me back from intimate relationships, realizing what a lot of my patterns were, just really working through that self-sabotage subconscious. Now, I wasn't perfect by the time I met my husband. I'm married now. I'm still not perfect. But the point was, or is, that once I became clear on a lot of the stuff that was blocking me, then I was able to manifest him very quickly using the law of assumption. Because what happens to a lot of people is that they say they want something, but they don't actually believe that they can have it. There's a lot of duplicity that goes on, where they say they want something like a husband, but the reality is that they haven't worked through their stuff. So they keep getting into relationships with people who don't treat them well, because essentially they're going based off of trauma bonding or chemistry. They're not going into relationships from that much of a healed place. So I just wanted to point that out because, it's not just about getting married or finding a husband, it's about being in a healthy relationship. And that's a part of being in a healthy relationship and attracting one is you better have worked through your own stuff or be actively working on your own stuff, because it's not like it ends the minute you get married. You are two human beings that are constantly changing and constantly evolving. So making sure that there is a commitment to that growth and that healing. Okay, so let's get into, I decided what it is that I want. I removed a lot of the blocks that were in the way, or I became aware of the blocks that were in the way, so I started behaving differently. And so let's go into some of the behaviors that I changed and some of the things that I did using the law of assumption in order to attract my husband in 4 months. So, number one, I started to define what my ideal partner and relationship was. I got really crystal clear on what I wanted. And I don't mean like, oh, I want blue eyes and 6'2" and all this like nonsense that most people put on these lists. I really focused on the character. What kind of a character do I want in a husband? I wanted someone who was a provider. What does a provider mean? It means that they protect you. It means that they provide for you financially. It means they solve your problems instead of bringing more problems to you. A lot of women are out here with men who just cause a bunch of problems. A provider man will find solutions to those problems and oftentimes will fix your problems before you even know you have a problem. So I wanted one of those. I wanted someone who was entrepreneurial. I wanted someone who shared the same value system as me. I wanted someone who was willing to travel all over the world and live in other countries. So I put all of those things on a list. The next thing that I did is I started living in the end state. And this is something that I break down specifically how I do it in that free PDF that I mentioned. So make sure to download that below. But basically, I started using different techniques like visualization and really getting into the emotion in my visualization of what it would be like to be in a relationship with this person. That was a big one, and I was doing it every single day. And once again, I break down the step-by-step process on how to do that in the free PDF. The other thing that I did, which I brought up in our recent video, was that I had to get really good at receiving. So if I'm a feminine woman, right, and I want a masculine man, what is the role of the feminine? The role of the feminine is to receive. So I had to get really good at that. And the reality was that I wasn't that good at it. I thought I was because I was making a lot of money. But the reality was I wasn't that good at it, again, because I had been raised by a lineage of very controlling women who also are not good at receiving. They have to control every little thing. And it's survival programming and there's trauma there. And that wasn't a generation that was really going to go work on themselves. They just kind of, this is my lot in life, and that's it. Now, my generation, I was like, nope, I'm going to break this pattern and I'm going to change it and I'm going to have a better relationship for myself and I'm going to have a better life for myself. So one of the things I realized was I actually wasn't that good at receiving, and I wasn't that good at receiving from the masculine. But I did a little experiment and I said, I'm going to receive from men in all ways. And it didn't have to be romantic at all. Like if a colleague wanted to take me out to dinner to help me solve a business problem, I was there. If the guy who owned a bakery wanted to give me like a free sample or something, I was accepting it. If a mentor who was male wanted to help me solve an issue in my business, I was accepting it. If somebody, I even had a colleague give me like a whole course for free. And I was like, okay, I will accept it. So I really practice accepting from men all around me and masculine energy. And that was a huge game shifter because by the time I met my husband gives all the time. My husband solves a lot of problems for me. He solves problems before I even know I have them. And old Amanda would have been and he's very generous with his money. So old Amanda would have been like freaked out. But because new Amanda had practiced this in safe situations, in platonic situations, then it was a lot easier to accept from my husband. And then finally, the last part of this was trusting and letting go. So Remember, I came from a line of controlling women, so this is probably one of the most difficult things about the law of assumption. And it's one of the hardest steps when it comes to manifesting a man, money, the body that you want, anything that you desire. The hardest part is trusting and letting go. So in this case, I had to trust and let go and know that my desired man was available. And the minute I got into the energy of the law of assumption, where I just assumed he existed and uh, I didn't really even think about when I was gonna find him. Oh my god, I went out, I met a guy, is he the one? You know, that thing that women do when they go out to events and things when they're single and they just meet, like, they see all these guys and they're like, who are the single ones? Is that gonna be my husband? Is that gonna be my husband? You know, that neurotic thing that single women do sometimes. I wasn't doing any of that. I was just like, I know this man exists, he's gonna show up when he shows up, and I'm gonna keep practicing being in this energy of receiving from the masculine. I'm going to keep visualizing this. I'm going to keep seeing myself in this relationship, and I'm going to keep practicing being in more of the feminine energy. Once I did that, then when I was in meditation, that's when I started getting intuitive hits in terms of go to this event, do that thing, email this person, talk to that person. And that would be how I ended up meeting my husband. I ended up taking a meeting with somebody at my work, and they said, you know what, you would be a really good fit for this networking group. It's referral only. I can give you a referral. So she got me into that group, and I would end up meeting my husband in that group. And my husband matched everything that was on my list, including the traveling and living in other countries. I mean, down to a T. It was crazy. And when I made that realization, that's when I was like, oh, I manifested this. So I hope that this gives you a lot of hope for those of you who are single. And here's a quick recap. Number one, assume it's already done, right? Feel the feelings of being in love and with this person now. Stay committed to your beliefs. There's no second guessing. There's no looking for signs. There's no let me go to an event and see which one of these guys could be my husband. There's none of that. There's affirmations and visualizing daily, and there's the releasing of the resistance. So becoming aware and letting go of all the blocks that are in the way of you receiving your husband. So that's how I manifested my husband in 4 months using the law of assumption. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up because it helps us with the algorithm gods. And we are on a mission to get in front of as many high achievers and high performers as possible to help them have success in a more holistic way so they can have easier lives, so they can have prosperous businesses, great relationships, the health that they desire, and so that they can navigate life a lot more easily. Also, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss a single video that we have coming out on this channel. And make sure to download that free PDF below because it'll put into a 4-step process how I used visualization to really manifest my husband and call him in. And not just my husband, but all the other cool stuff I have going on in my life right now. Thank you so much for being here and giving me your time today, and I'll catch you on the next one.